Lipstick. Well, it is a Friday evening. No, don't worry. I've not got that much courage. Even if you do dare me or double dare me, there's no way I'm using this stuff. I have no idea about it, to be honest. What does it say? Muse. What does that even mean? Muse red. No idea. Anyway, the Book of Esther is a lot about this stuff. Makeup. Not worn out of choice, it has to be said. Not worn in order to give Esther confidence. No, worn as a kind of ritual of subordination. But regardless of the makeup, with Esther, we have someone of real courage. She'd lost much about life, her family, and her freedom. We read in the book of Esther, and actually, it's a great book because if you start at verse 18 of chapter 9, it gives you a summary, a short summary of the whole story of the book. But if we read it slowly, we read a story of someone who loses their mother and father and is raised in the home of her cousin, Mordecai. And eventually, somehow, she finds herself in the king's harem, being prepared for him. Queen Vashti has made an error of judgment and she's had the crown removed from her head. And the king, whose name I find impossible to pronounce, the Persian king, is looking for a new bride. And so, one by one, he quite literally tries out all of the virgins in his harem until along comes Esther, who has spent a year beautifying herself under the care of the guy in charge of the harem, who you won't be surprised to know is a eunuch. He, uh, Esther has won over his favour. He sees something in her and he lavishes her with all of the beauty treatments she needs in order to catch the king's eye. But what's powerful and amazing about Esther isn't so much what's on the outside, it's what's on the inside. For the book of Esther is all about a person, a woman of incredible courage. Because alongside this story of a king looking for love, or is it really love? We can discuss that later. There's a story of someone who is opposed to everything that Esther is. Haman is what we would call an anti Semite. He wants to see the Jews eradicated from the face of the earth. And he plots all kinds of schemes and things to see that happen. And eventually, what happens is that the tables are turned and things are completely subverted, and it's Haman that ends up being executed, not the Jewish people. All because of Esther's bravery. Because of Queen Vashti dishonouring the king, there'd been a royal decree making it clear that women were below men, the lowest of the low, subordinate in every sense. So when Esther hears about Haman's plan to eradicate all of the Jews, her cousin Mordecai says, "Go to the king and tell him what's happening." But in order for her to do that, she actually risks death. She had no invitation, she couldn't approach the king. But nevertheless, because of her commitment to her people, she decides, from that place of security and favour, to risk it all and to approach the king. The words which kind of sum up this whole book for me are there in chapter 4. If I perish, I perish. And she goes to the king and asks for deliverance for her people in a very clever way, all to do with a banquet and winning over the king's favour and exposing Haman for all he is. It leads to a great festival of Purim, 2 days of celebration and rejoicing because the Jewish people have been delivered. And it's still a festival celebrated today, a festival of rejoicing and celebration at which the poor are given gifts, also charity as well as celebration. The Book of Esther, then, is all about a woman who, in a situation of apparent powerlessness and hopelessness, redeems and delivers her people through the way in which she takes on power, steps into that place of threat and challenge, and brings hope through the way in which she confronts evil and power. It's almost like a forerunner to Christ for me in the way that she confronts things and risks everything. It's no surprise then that the story is read even today every year at this festival of Purim, when the Jews celebrate their freedom and share that freedom with others. So, regardless of what you're doing this weekend, whether it involves lipstick, makeup, or whatever else, read the Book of Esther and be impressed by that woman's courage. And may the same spirit that was at work in her give us that same courage to bring hope where there is hopelessness, to confront power with truth and justice.